My name is Reggie Reed. Salonia Reed is my mother, and Reginald Reed Sr. is my father. My mother, she was the love of my life, my first love, and I was her everything. It was very rare I wasn't by her side.
Take me back and tell me what you remember about that day.
That day, we went to the mall. That's one of the things to do in Hammond, just go to the mall, even though if you're not buying anything, window shop, if you will. Went to the mall, came home, and my mom went out, and she never came home.
My beeper went off, and it was Reginald. And he asked me, had I seen Salonia? And I said, no, not since yesterday.
I was a patrol officer for the Hammond Police Department. I was dispatched to a missing persons call on Apple Street in Hammond, Louisiana. The complainant, Reginald Reed, explained to me that his wife had left home the night before and had not returned, and he was concerned and wanted to file a missing persons report. I had received a description of the car from Reginald. I started to drive up Range Road, and I noticed the car. Walked up to the car and noticed Salonia's body inside the car. It was very, very, very obvious that she was deceased.
Salonia was 26 years old at the time. When I watched the crime scene video and saw Salonia's body in that car, immediately I was sad, I was mad. It was pretty apparent to me right away that whoever did this homicide hated this woman.
So I called Reginald back. I says, Reginald, have you heard anything? He told me, he said, yes. He said they found her in her car. And he said that she was dead. And that was...
I was interviewed after she was murdered as a 6-year-old.
Okay, can you tell me your name? What's your name?
When I watched that video over and over again,
Okay, the day before Sunday, what did you do?
what I see is a 6-year-old boy that life had been changed. He doesn't understand the magnitude of it yet. And you're asking me, you're trying to find out who killed my mother.
Do you remember seeing her leave? You did?
Anytime a young woman Salonia's age is killed the way she's killed, I think most people right away would assume the husband did it, right? And that's the easy way, that's the stereotypical way. But it's also not out of the realm of possibility that this was some killing for another reason.
From that day on, my life changed forever.
It just begs the question, why?
After my mother was murdered, things moved fast. Couldn't really understand, like, why would somebody kill her? Like, what did she do?
It's been decades since Reggie Reed Jr. last saw his mother, Salonia.
I feel like I missed out on a huge part of life that I'll never get back.
Reggie was only 6 years old on August 22nd, 1987. One of the last things he remembers is his mother buying him a chocolate chip cookie. here at the Hammond Square Mall in Louisiana. He told police his mother kissed him when she left the house later that night, but the rest, he says, is a blur.
When you think about that, what does that feel like?
When I think about how my mother's life was shortened and how my experience was shortened, I feel empty.
If somebody says to you, who was Salonia? What do you say?
If someone asks me who was Salonia, I would say, you looking at her. Because based on the description, the memories, and what things people have shared, when I look in the mirror, I see my mother.
Reggie's memories are at the heart of the memoir he's written about his mother's murder, The Day My Mother Never Came Home.
Within these pages, you will find the memories of a 6-year-old boy whose mother was murdered, a 15-year-old young man searching for his place in the world without the guidance and encouragement of his mother. The night my mother went out and never came home, life for me and my father was basically flipped upside down.
Charles Muse, now retired, was the police officer who found Salonia's body after taking the initial missing persons report from her husband, Reginald Reed.
Salonia's body was in between the bucket seats of the car with her torso over into the back seat of the car.
She had 16 pinpoint-like stab wounds in her upper torso, shoulder, and neck. Her blouse had been torn off. Her pants had been removed from her. She had been sexually assaulted as well.
Louisiana State Police Lieutenant Barry Ward would eventually be assigned to the case years later. He was only 16 years old when Salonia was murdered.
In 1987, I was a sophomore in Marshall County High School in western Kentucky.
When he eventually did pick up the case file, he took note of the lack of blood in the car.
It would suggest that she was murdered in another location and then transported to where her body was later discovered at the Johns Curb Market.
That market was about 1.5 miles from the Reed house on Apple Street. At the scene, Officer Muse noticed something else about Salonia's naked body.
I did see a substance that had been placed on the body. It was a white liquid-type substance on her torso and stomach area.
Police believe the white lotion may have spelled out a word, but if there was a message, it had become illegible in the Louisiana heat.
The windows were rolled up. It was August at the time. It was very hot out.
Detectives bagged any potential evidence, including the butt of a cigarette. A Winston cigarette. Police canvassed the area, but Ward says they didn't find any eyewitnesses or a murder weapon.
The following day, on Monday the 24th, a neighbor went to his mailbox and discovered a crucifix and a screwdriver.
Given the nature of Salonia's injuries, police at first believed the screwdriver might be the murder weapon, even though it had no visible blood on it. It was early in the investigation, and detectives looked at all the angles, including Salonia's job at Citizens National Bank.
She was a teller in the commercial section. She was described as being polite, kind, had a nice smile.
Here she is, taking part in a community fashion show, just 1 week before her murder. Salonia and Reginald, who was a Marine and later a car salesman, met during their high school years. Salonia was known for being devoted to little Reggie, as everyone called him. But the night she disappeared, she left the 6-year-old at home with his father, according to what Reginald told police.
He and his son, Reginald Jr., were going to stay and play video games while she went out to a local bar with her girlfriend.
Officer Muse interviewed that friend, who denied she and Salonia had plans that night. Reginald told police he suspected Salonia had a boyfriend and admitted he and his wife had personal differences. But Ward says the police found no evidence of an affair.
Based on the research that I had conducted, her coworkers, the people that knew her, said that she just went to work and came home, that she was always seen with her little boy.
The day after her body was found, investigators searched the family home on Apple Street.
The chief of police said that when he went in, it smelled like bleach in the house.
Detectives looked for evidence that Salonia may have been killed there, but all they found was a freshly vacuumed carpet and the gold clasp of a necklace. Reginald gave investigators permission to interview little Reggie, the only other person in the home the night of the murder. In this police video, a detective questions Reggie as his father fidgets with a beanbag intended for his son.
Tell me what you remember about that night.
Reggie Jr. became his father's alibi. The boy said he and his father played video games and then slept together in the same sofa bed on that August night.
Did anybody come over? Did anybody leave? Everybody stayed home that night?
When little Reggie agrees that everybody stayed home, his father looks at him.
Everybody? Everybody stayed home that night?
Don't be afraid. This, when she talk
Baby,
to you.
don't be afraid.
We just talking.
I don't want to talk.
She will ask you just a few more questions.
What's the matter, baby?
He said he didn't want to talk no more.
Oh, you don't want to talk no more?
It's just the emotional part of it.
Okay, that's all right. Look, didn't I tell you before that I'm your friend? Oh, he's here, baby. Okay, darling, I won't talk no more. You don't have to.
I just can't imagine what it's like as a 6-year-old to have to sit there and...
Looking at that, it's still hard to believe that that's me. Watching that video just brings back so many questions and pain because I see me crying.
In the aftermath of Salonia's murder, her family came forward with more information, some of it directed at one of Reginald's friends, Jimmy Ray Barnes. Turns out, Barnes smoked Winston cigarettes, the same brand found in Salonia's car. And Salonia's sister, Gwen Smith, said that Salonia did not like Jimmy Ray.
Apparently she knew Jimmy Ray's voice because she started screaming, "Come inside, I don't trust him." So she was scared of him.
In the days after Salonia's murder, there was one name police kept hearing: Jimmy Ray Barnes, a friend of Reginald Sr.
Jimmy Ray Barnes was an acquaintance of Reginald Reed. He hung out with him, he worked with him.
Lieutenant Ward learned about a disturbing incident at a local beach where Salonia was swimming with little Reggie just days before the murder.
They were on inner tubes. Jimmy flipped Salonia over. She didn't feel that it was a playful thing. She felt that it was deliberate and intentional. She was not a good swimmer, and she said she struggled to make it to the bank.
The next night, her sister Gwen said Salonia became frightened when a relative who was visiting Salonia spotted Jimmy Ray Barnes near her home.
And she said Salonia went into hysterics like, no, don't go out there, don't go out there.
And within a few moments, Jimmy Ray Barnes walked around the corner of the house. Jimmy told her that he was checking on Salonia, and she ran him off.
Ward would learn that Jimmy Ray, along with Reginald, came under even more scrutiny 2 days after the murder. A witness came forward to say she had seen two men around John's Curb Market on the night Salonia was murdered.
She became suspicious and later wrote down on a piece of scrap paper the license plate. As it turns out, that was the vehicle that Reginald Reed was known to operate in. That was his car.
Some 2 weeks later, police assembled this photo array and showed it to the witness.
The witness identified the driver as Reginald Reed and the passenger as Jimmy Ray Barnes.
Jimmy Ray was given a polygraph test, and police at the time said he passed. But it wasn't long before Jimmy Ray left Hammond. Reginald denied having anything to do with Salonia's murder. But neighbors told police the marriage was troubled. Family members say Salonia had accused her husband of physical abuse, and there was talk of divorce. The police continued investigating, but prosecutors never brought the case to a grand jury.
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence in 1987 that pointed to Reginald Reed and Jimmy Ray Barnes. As far as a smoking gun, it was not there at that time.
I started feeling like nothing was going to be done about her murder, and we would not get justice.
Time passed, and Reginald continued to live in Hammond. He even ran for mayor in 1998.
R.L. Reggie Reed, number 8. You can count on me. Thank you.
He lost that race, but he and little Reggie stayed in the family home, which today has fallen into disrepair.
So this is it.
What's it like for you to just come back here? I know you don't like to, but what does it feel like?
I feel numb. Yeah, I feel numb. This is where it all started. You know, this is the halls I used to run. This is the TV room. This was the TV room.
When you were playing Nintendo with your father the night that your mother was murdered, was that here?
That was in this room.
Reggie went on to attend college and later got an MBA. He moved out of Hammond and began working for a pharmaceutical company. There were no new developments on his mother's murder until 2011, when Lieutenant Barry Ward of the Louisiana State Police got involved.
After I started interacting with Salonia's family, her sisters, I realized how important it was.
Before Barry Ward came into the picture, I just felt like nobody cared about Salonia's case.
This was just the last opportunity I felt before more witnesses passed away that we would have a chance to find justice for this terrible crime that happened to Salonia.
As far as Ward could determine, the crucifix and screwdriver found within days of the murder led nowhere. But the detective was drawn to several life insurance policies Reginald had taken out on Salonia that paid out more than $700,000. Some of those policies were taken out the same month that Salonia was murdered. Ward wanted to re-interview Reggie Jr. in 2012. Reggie was 31 years old and living in Texas. Ward sent a Texas Ranger to begin the questioning.
He told me why he was here, and it was to discuss my mother's murder.
And the Ranger then told Reggie something he said he'd never heard before.
He was not aware that his father was a suspect in the murder of his mother.
I was like, where is this coming from? Like, it's been over 3 decades. You talking about my dad, like, killed my mom? I'm like, seriously? I remember asking, is there any new evidence that will surface? And it was nothing new.
It's true that the insurance policies had been discovered by the original detectives, but Lieutenant Ward had organized them in a way that he felt was damning. The Texas Ranger asked Reggie about those policies.
He showed me a graph, a timeline that showed these insurance policies that were taken out close to her death.
Did you all of a sudden say, I need to get to the bottom of this, or what?
It was eye-opening, because I'm like, well, that doesn't look good. Well, I gotta learn more, like, what's all this?
Reggie struggled to make sense of it all.
I did talk to my dad about it over the phone, and his response was he took out policies on everyone.
Reggie said he finds it hard to square what the investigation revealed with the loving father who raised him.
I look back, I'm like, man, he really did do some great stuff for me. He was a great provider.
Ward took a deep dive into the case file and focused on that Winston cigarette butt found in Salonia's car. He sent it out for DNA testing, something that was not widely available in 1987. there was a match in the National Crime DNA Database, CODIS, but not to Jimmy Ray.
It came back to a man by the name of Billy Ray Barnes.
Billy Ray was Jimmy Ray's identical twin brother, and the DNA supervisor had another surprise.
He let me know that identical twins share identical DNA.
Lieutenant Ward decided he had to interview Jimmy Ray, and it turned out that Jimmy Ray had been holding on to some key information all these years.
Jimmy Ray Barnes did tell me that Reginald Reed offered him $50,000 to quote-unquote knock off his wife.
Tonight's 48 Hours will continue.
48 Hours is back.
With 48 Hours.
And so is the official after show podcast, Postmortem.
Great to be with you again.
Where we bring you a closer look at each case.
This was one of the most emotional interviews.
Follow and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
In July 2012, Lieutenant Barry Ward went on the hunt for Jimmy Ray Barnes, who had become a prime suspect in the Salonia Reed murder case after his DNA was linked to the crime scene. Ward found Barnes in the Atlanta area, where he said Barnes told him he'd fled Hammond because he was afraid of Reginald Reed. Barnes said back then he'd been shot at 3 times and hit once in the neck. Barnes suspected the shooter was Reginald, but had no proof.
Jimmy said he was known to carry a gun, but you fast forward 25, now 30 years, Reginald Reed was now an old man.
We're on. Okay.
Barnes was ready to talk about Reed without a lawyer.
I ain't got nothing to hide.
Barnes told Ward that a few days before Salonia was killed, Reed asked him if he would, quote, knock off his wife.
Reginald asked you if you would,
yeah,
quote, by your term,
right,
knock off his wife. And
right,
that mean you took that to mean to kill her, to murder her?
Right.
What was your response to that?
Hell no.
Did he discuss any money with you?
Yeah, he discussed money.
Ward pressed Barnes to tell him how much money.
More than $5,000?
Yeah.
More than $10,000?
Yeah.
More than $50,000?
$50,000.
He offered you $50,000?
Yeah.
Is that a guess, or is that the amount he offered?
That was the amount he offered.
But Barnes told Ward that he would not repeat the story in court.
I don't trust the law no more.
Ward confronted Barnes about that polygraph test from the original case file. Barnes allegedly had passed that polygraph, but Ward suspected Jimmy Ray secretly had asked his identical twin, Billy Ray, to take that test.
I talked to Billy, and he said he took that polygraph test. And if Billy looked like you and was questioned over a murder that you took part in, and he doesn't know anything about it, he's probably going to pass that polygraph test. Would that be fair to say?
I don't know. I'm not going to answer that because I know I'm the one who took the polygraph test.
Ward believed he had a solid case to finally bring charges. He had Jimmy Ray's DNA connected to the crime scene and his videotaped statement about Reggie offering him $50,000 to kill Salonia. But, Ward said, prosecutors always wanted more.
I would get phone calls through the years from prosecutors who would ask me to re-interview family members, find out additional information, test more evidence. It was busy work.
Then, in 2018, a newly hired prosecutor, Taylor Anthony, got assigned the case.
Why reopen a 35-year-old case? What was the trigger?
Well, why reopen it? It's an interesting question. This was a case, to me, right away when I looked at it, that there was a story to be told.
Anthony was impressed by all the investigative work done by Lieutenant Ward, so he reached out. But Ward told Anthony he was too busy and that he felt he'd been let down by other prosecutors.
My initial response was to just get this guy off the phone.
He said, look, I've already poured hundreds of man-hours into that case, and y'all didn't do anything. And he said, you're wasting your time, kid. Have a nice life, basically.
But Anthony was undeterred and promised Ward that this time things would be different.
I think he saw what I saw. I think that made all the difference in the world.
Like Ward, Anthony was sure Jimmy Ray Barnes knew a lot more. So he and Ward took a road trip to Atlanta.
We were able to locate Jimmy. He was staying in a camper at his employer's place. We pulled up early in the morning when the sun was coming up, and he was coming out of this camper, putting a belt in his pants. And he said, hey, who y'all looking for? I said, you, Jimmy. And he goes, oh, you again.
But this time, the new prosecutor had with him an agreement, approved by a judge, giving Barnes complete immunity if he testified to everything he knew about Salonia's murder.
So, to the layperson, you offered him a deal?
So I offered him what I would say would be the golden ticket.
But Barnes rejected the offer.
He did not trust me, he did not believe me, he did not want to talk to us.
Ward and Anthony were about to drive back to Louisiana when Barnes said something that took them by surprise.
As Barry and I were getting back in the car, Jimmy Ray Barnes came over to us and he said, I want you boys to know that I'm the key to it all. And he said, if you think you can indict me for murder, then do it.
Anthony was quick to take him up on that challenge.
A couple of weeks later, grand jury in Tazewell Parish returned second-degree murder indictments for both Reginald Reed and Jimmy Ray Barnes. Immediately, we went to Reginald's home. I knocked on the door, identified who I was, and that I had an arrest warrant for him for the murder of his wife. He really had no emotion.
The date was June 21st, 2019, more than 30 years after Salonia's murder.
When Reginald was arrested, it was like a burden, just kind of my chest, like a burden was lifted off.
I got a call that my father was indicted for second-degree murder and conspiracy, along with a co-defendant for my mother's murder.
Reggie Jr. put up his father's $250,000 bail bond.
My dad being my rock for so many years, I felt the need to try to help him.
Now that you are both adults, did you ever ask him those questions that you have, that you're questioning even now as we sit here?
Yeah, I asked him, and he maintains his innocence.
Sitting in another Hammond jail cell was Jimmy Ray Barnes. He now had a lawyer and asked to speak with Detective Barry Ward and Taylor Anthony.
So Barry and I went and met with him again, and in exchange for him telling us everything he knew, he was offered a deal to plead to accessory after the fact to murder and was given a 5-year prison sentence.
The homicide trial of Reginald Reed was scheduled for November 2022, and Jimmy Ray had agreed to testify. Reggie Jr. hoped to hear never-before-revealed details of what had happened to his mother.
I want to know what happened.
Tonight's 48 Hours will continue.
In November 2022, the murder trial of Reginald Reed began in Amite, Louisiana. Reed was represented by the mother and daughter defense team of Vanessa Williams and LaToya Williams-Simon.
What makes you think that he did not murder Salonia?
Their entire case is circumstantial.
Williams-Simon says the state's case was weak. There was no murder weapon, no fingerprints or DNA tying Reed to Salonia's homicide.
I was confused as to how they were really going to prove their case. There's no direct evidence.
But prosecutor Taylor Anthony believed his prosecution would deliver justice to Salonia.
The reason I became a prosecutor is to fight for people like this. I see a woman whose body's been desecrated, violated, mutilated, and nobody spoke up for her and fought for her. And there's a quote that I love, and it goes, "The dead cannot cry out for justice. It is the duty of the living to do so for them." And that's my job.
Anthony told jurors about the $700,000 from the insurance policies on Salonia's life.
So what was your theory once you put all these pieces together?
My theory was that Salonia and Reginald were in a marriage that was about to come to an end. There was a history of abuse, and that Salonia was tired of it, and she was ready to leave Reginald. I think he was angry and he saw an opportunity for some money. I think that's why he killed this woman.
The case that they're presenting, which is this man takes out all these life insurance policies on a young, healthy 26-year-old woman. What is his rationale for having done that?
But they're missing the biggest part of it.
Which
it wasn't just on her. It was on himself. It was on the child. It was family policies. So it's not like he just went and took out policies on Salonia only.
Prosecutor Anthony was frank with jurors, telling them that the state would not produce a murder weapon or the exact location where Salonia was stabbed. He focused on what the prosecution did have, including that white lotion found on Salonia's body.
Later, police were able to find a bottle of lotion in the Reed household that matched that type of lotion that was on her body.
The prosecutor also showed jurors a photograph of some scratches on Reed's neck taken on the day Salonia's body was found.
They wanted to take photographs of his neck, and he was very hesitant.
Anthony said Reed told police 2 different stories about how he got those scratches. But after forensic testing, it was determined that none of Reed's DNA was found under Salonia's fingernails.
They believe that the killer is Mr. Reginald Reed, so anything that goes to contradict that, they're going to completely block out.
William Simon pointed to Jimmy Ray's long criminal record of arrests.
It couldn't be introduced at trial. And the reason why his criminal rap sheet couldn't be introduced at trial is because these aren't convictions.
But William Simon says Jimmy Ray's arrests were for violent crimes.
False imprisonment and aggravated assault, aggravated battery with a dangerous weapon, murder. These are things that the jury had a right to know, but because of the law, they didn't find out.
Jimmy Ray Barnes ultimately took the stand as part of his plea agreement.
Jimmy, will you please tell me?
There were no cameras in the courtroom, so this recording is taken from Barnes's police interview conducted by Ward before the trial. He told the same story when he testified. On the night of the murder, Barnes said he promised to meet Reed in the parking area outside John's Curb Market, where Salonia's body had been found.
Oh, when I got there, he was getting out of the blue car. The blue car was parked there.
Barnes said Reginald asked for his help in moving Salonia's body.
I said, no, I wasn't getting involved in that. He wanted me to move the body, and I didn't want to move, and I didn't move the body.
Barnes says that Salonia was fully clothed when he saw her and sitting in the passenger seat.
I did see the body in there, and I panicked.
My understanding after the fact is that Jimmy Ray Barnes talked to Reggie and said, "Where's the money? You told me $50,000. He says he never got a penny of it.
Prosecutor Anthony contends that after the men drove away, Reed returned and staged the crime scene, stripping off Salonia's clothes, covering her with that white lotion, and leaving other evidence to make it appear as a sex crime.
And what does your dad say to that?
He says it's completely BS. He says it's no way. We were at home playing Nintendo.
William Simon had her own theory of what happened that night.
All of the information that we've received about Jimmy Ray Barnes is that he was borderline obsessed with Salonia. I believe that maybe he encountered her, tried to make a pass at her, that was rejected, and that's where you see that anger, that rage, that hatred.
Sitting through the trial, Reggie admitted that the relentless focus on his mother's murder was upsetting, especially as he watched that crime scene video, which he had never seen before.
And it really struck a chord by just seeing my mother there, lifeless and just alone and dead.
Reginald Reed never took the stand, and after less than a week of testimony, the case went to the jury. Reggie Jr. braced for the verdict.
As a prosecutor, when the jury deliberates, it's painstaking. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting.
Some of Reginald Reed's brothers and sisters were waiting as well. Kennedy Reed, Belinda Reed Cox, and Claude Reed.
Claude, you don't believe your brother murdered Salonia?
No, I don't. I don't believe Reggie did that.
My brother's not a murderer. He's not.
But on this day, November 18th, 2022, Reginald Reed was found guilty of second-degree murder after the jury deliberated for just over 3 hours.
When he was found guilty, I feel like he died without dying. And I saw myself at that same 6-year-old crying out for my dad as I did in that video.
I'm your friend.
And I just wanted to end.
Reggie tried to recapture the moment his father was found guilty in his book.
My father grabbed me up into a big hug. I wanted to stay there forever. He pulled back for a moment, looked me in the eyes, and kissed me on the forehead. We embraced once more, and then they took him away from me.
I wanted to tell him, I'm sorry for the loss of your mother. I'm sorry for your father going to prison. I can't even imagine the grieving process that he's got to go through.
Reggie says sitting through the trial was excruciating. But when it was over, he still wanted answers.
It's my parents' room.
Lieutenant Ward has told you that one of his theories is that your mother may have been killed in this room.
In this room. I just go back thinking of the manner and the way which she was killed. If she was killed here, how is it possible that they couldn't find anything? Where was I? Did you leave the house after I fell asleep?
Questions Reggie cannot answer because he simply cannot remember. On January 30th, 2023, everyone piled back into the same courtroom where Reginald Reed was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He did not offer any kind of explanation or statement and said nothing.
You know, I want justice, but I didn't think justice was gonna come at the price of my dad going to prison for life.
So my question is, do you believe that your father murdered your mother?
I don't know. Another question, do I think my dad had some involvement? Maybe. I don't know, though. I don't know. So that's where I'm just, it's like a tug-of-war game.
Just knowing the type of father he is, I can't just turn a page and just look at my father as a complete monster.
Salonia's sister, Gwen Smith, always believed Reginald was Salonia's killer. Although she and Reggie Jr. are estranged, she still worries about him.
I just kind of feel bad for him, you know? Because his mom was taken away from him when he was a little boy.
What do you want people to know about this case? If you could sum it up for me.
I know one thing, my brother did not commit this murder.
For Barry Ward, who worked on the Salonia Reed case for a decade, the conviction was just, and he appreciates that Jimmy Ray Barnes agreed to testify.
Jimmy Ray Barnes was the key.
Barnes served his sentence for being an accessory after the fact to murder. He was freed from prison, and shortly after, on January 27, 2024, he was killed in a car accident. He was in Hammond to attend the funeral of his identical twin.
There are several cases throughout my career that stick out to me, and this is probably the main one.
Charles Muse, the Hammond police officer who found Salonia's body, is pleased he got to see the outcome of the case.
I mean, her death, didn't just go in vain. I find some peace in that.
You say that you wish you would have gotten to know her better, but then you realize too, you must, that she's living through you, that she's here because you're here.
Absolutely. And I think about that she's in a place where she's consistently watching over me.
As for Reggie's father, He calls Reggie from a Louisiana state prison once or twice a week.
This call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored.
Hey, Ray.
Hey,
How you doing, man?
good, how you?
A 48 Hours producer was present during a recent call.
Do you think you got a fair trial?
No, of course not. Of course not. Wasn't no evidence.
What do you got to tell us about your son?
Oh, remarkable. I thank the Lord for him every day. That he was able to understand something that was going on, but that I would never leave him.
These days, Reggie has his own family. His son Lathan is nearly the age he was when Salonia was killed. And they often play games just as Reggie did with his father. And in January 2024, Reggie and his wife Paula were blessed with a baby girl.
When our daughter was born, we both agreed there's no other name that we should name her except Salonia. You know, give that name an opportunity to live life and be recognized in a positive way.
Wow, it's beautiful.
My name is Carol Dodge, and I am the mother of Angie Dodge, who was brutally murdered in June of 1996. And for 23 years, I've traveled every road there is, turned every stone there is, to find justice for my daughter.
As the officers arrived at the crime scene and found Angie Dodge laying on the ground, and it was obvious that there was a very brutal murder that had happened, a lot of blood. During the investigation, we came across a significant amount of DNA that we believe is from the killer.
Would you say that this crime scene provided really good evidence?
Excellent evidence.
For nearly 2 decades, police could not find a match to the killer's DNA. So in 2014, they went way outside the box and searched a public DNA database owned by Ancestry.com.
It led us to this Michael Essery Jr., who just happened to be a filmmaker.
Films of homicide, kind of a murder mystery filmmaker.
Then he cuts off her head.
My name is Michael Essery. I'm a filmmaker and was a suspect in the Angie Dodge case. Murderabilia.
It was then I knew it was a girl, and she was young.
Got me the reputation of being a person who is really into murder and things like that.
And I shoved her body over in the shower and just kept stabbing her.
It was pretty creepy. We had Louisiana State Police call him. He had agreed to come down to the state offices there in New Orleans.
The majority of the time that I was in the interrogation room, I just didn't know what they were talking about. They finally had to look at me and go, no, we think that you, Michael Essery, we think that you're involved in this murder case.
My whole purpose is to find who killed Angie Dodge.
The ability to kill is obviously somewhere in all of us because it happens every day.
Grief has no time limit. I just can't let go. I can't let go of her.
Carol Dodge lost her daughter Angie when she was just a teenager.
She was just discovering who she truly was and wanting independence. She says, just let me grow up. Let me make my own mistakes. You know, you don't need to watch me. You know, you don't need to be my shadow.
It was the summer of 1996 in Idaho Falls, Idaho, a mostly Mormon community where neighbors knew each other by name and doors were rarely locked, says former Chief of Police Mark McBride.
But it was really a very quiet, peaceful town overall.
Just 3 weeks before her death, 18-year-old Angie got her own apartment in this house.
I saw her the night that she was killed. She said, it's so hard growing up. And she laid her head on my shoulder and we just kind of rocked back and forth. And I'm so grateful for that moment. Extremely grateful that my last words were that I love her.
The next morning, Angie didn't show up for work at a local beauty supply store.
We got a phone call at our 911 center about 11 o'clock in the morning. And one of her friends at work came to check on her, and the door was unlocked. She went in and she found a body laying there on the floor in a very bloody crime scene.
There were no signs of forced entry, but there were signs of a struggle.
You think she fought for her life?
Yes, I do.
Angie was stabbed and cut 14 times and left half naked. The killer ejaculated on her, leaving behind what DNA expert Greg Hampikian calls a pristine profile.
It's a single profile, complete identification, one man to the exclusion of everyone on the planet.
Police began collecting the DNA of dozens of local men and spent months interviewing everyone Angie knew, including this young man, Christopher Tapp. Although his DNA didn't match and Tapp denied any involvement, after more than 28 hours of interrogation over 23 days, Tapp confessed to participating in Angie's murder.
You were there, correct?
Correct.
Did you know Christopher Tapp?
No, didn't know. I had no clue.
Tapp told police that the night of Angie's death, he and two friends stopped by her apartment. During an argument, Tapp claimed one of his friends started stabbing Angie while he held her down.
You hold her down, okay, while she's being cut. You hold her down while she's being cut.
But when Tapp went before a judge, he pled not guilty of raping and murdering Angie Dodge.
I said, you beast, you horrible beast. How could he do this to my daughter?
Defense argued Tapp's DNA didn't match the killer's, but on May 28, 1998, it took a jury approximately 13 hours to reach a verdict.
Guilty.
Nearly 2 years after Angie Dodge was murdered, Chris Tapp faced his punishment, with Carol Dodge glaring at him.
You are guilty of the crimes of murder in the first degree and rape.
His sentence, 30 years to life. But the murder of Angie Dodge was still an open case. Chris Tapp did not match the DNA, and he wouldn't tell police who did.
I just couldn't understand why he would go to prison and take a life sentence and not give the other person up.
Tapp did give authorities several names, including someone named Mike.
How sure are you that his first name is Mike? I'm dead set positive.
But police could never make a DNA match, so the case went cold, but not for Carol Dodge.
I never stop looking for the actual person who matches the DNA.
By 2009, the killer's DNA had been entered into the National Criminal Database, known as CODIS. But there was still no match. So Carol called well-known DNA expert Greg Hampikian.
I had this message, they don't know who killed my daughter.
By then, there had been many advances in DNA technology. And so with Hampikian's help, Carol Dodge pushed authorities to use a new controversial search process called familial DNA. It looks for anyone who may be related to Angie's killer.
Which means going into that database in Idaho of the convicted offenders and looking for a family member that might match this DNA partially.
Idaho doesn't allow familial searches in their criminal database, so Hampikian made an even more controversial suggestion: a familial search through public databases.
I'm the one that went to the Idaho Falls Police Department and the prosecution saying, we need to do this.
Imagine you're one of millions of Americans to open up a kit like this, spit into a test tube like this, and then send your DNA off to a commercial database. Well, now that database owns your DNA profile, and you may not realize it, but police may be able to access it.
We're interested in solving a crime, and we're going to use any technique we can that we can legally use.
In the summer of 2014, detectives searched a public DNA database owned by Ancestry.com. They got a hit.
I was told they got 34 out of 35 markers, I believe.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's a good investigative lead.
It was a close enough match to make Detective Patrick McKenna think they had found a relative of Angie's killer. So police got a warrant for Ancestry.com to reveal his identity. It was a man named Michael Usry Sr.
We know it's not that individual, or we would have had 35 out of 35 on that. So that's when we started doing research into the family.
That led investigators to suspect Usry's son, Michael Usry Jr. Detective McKenna wondered if this could be the Mike that Chris Tapp once named.
And then we started researching him, and the films that he was making. It was a little eerie to try to think that that could possibly be a solid suspect in the case.
I have to ask you this question.
Yes.
Do you have a particular interest in murder?
I don't have a particular interest in murder.
It sure seems like it based on your film.
I know it does, but no, I really have quite an aversion to it.
But authorities investigating the brutal murder of Angie Dodge weren't so sure.
Precisely at 2 o'clock, three gentlemen came to my door.
In December of 2014, more than 18 years after Angie's murder, Michael Usry Jr. was living in New Orleans when two detectives from Idaho Falls and a Louisiana State Police officer brought Usry to a state police office near the New Orleans Superdome and started grilling him.
They said, "So what about your travels to Idaho? Have you ever been to Idaho?" And I had, in fact. I actually went up there with some friends for just one night.
He was 19 years old back then, and he and his friends drove to Rexburg, Idaho, passing right through Idaho Falls.
Well, they were really interested in that.
I'm a little surprised that we were able to actually place him in Idaho Falls.
It was a big red flag for Detective Patrick McKenna.
It's kind of weird, but I just really didn't get it.
Then one of the officers pulled out a warrant and swabbed his cheek for DNA.
At that point, I went, hey, what's going on here, you guys? Should I get a lawyer?
Once they had his DNA, they drove Michael Usry home without any explanation.
I just basically stood on my sidewalk in a daze.
It was a call to a close friend that finally shed some light.
And he said, well, what's the case? What is this? And I go, well, they wouldn't tell me anything except that it was a high-profile murder case in Idaho Falls. So he gets on the computer, and within 20 seconds, he's like, oh, yeah, this is the case right here. It's some girl named Angie Dodge.
The filmmaker, whose movie featured a convict describing how he stabbed a woman to death,
watched her insides spill out all over the floor,
was now suspected of doing just that to Angie Dodge.
I mean, it was very much a case of an overkill. They stabbed her and cut her, and it was just a butchery. People were like, wow, what does this imply, for your career? For your life, for your family, for your family's name?
Usry remembers being terrified, spending days holed up at home, worried what police would do next.
Pretty sure that they were tapping my phone calls, possibly staking me out, certainly checking my computer searches.
But Usry knew he hadn't killed anyone, and he wanted answers. A local newspaper reporter showed him a copy of the warrant investigators used to obtain his DNA. And right there, the answer to the question, why him, dated back about 17 years.
And I went, wow, this is because of my dad.
The filmmaker's father, Michael Usry Sr., participated in a genealogy project at his local church. A sample of his DNA went to that public database, which was later purchased by Ancestry.com, and that's where police came across it.
There are 34 out of 35 LLs that match. It seems shocking to me.
34 out of 35 DNA markers sounds like a stunningly close match to Angie Dodge's killer. But the reasons police honed in on him instead of any of his other relatives are detailed in the warrant.
I told you what Mike is his first name, okay?
Remember, Chris Tapp told police a guy named Mike was involved in the murder. Police took to Facebook and found his profile. Bingo. Facebook showed Usry had friends living in the Idaho Falls area. And then there's Usry's films.
And then bludgeons her to death with this very hammer.
The more Usry read, the more furious he grew that anyone would think he was a killer. But even more troubling was the idea that Angie Dodge's killer might be someone in his family.
Just knowing that somebody in my family would possibly do something like that is disturbing. I mean, to say the least,
Michael Usry worried every day. He knew that Idaho Falls police suspected him of murdering Angie Dodge, and the uncertainty of what would happen next kept him up at night. Until January 13th, 2015, more than a month later.
They sent me an email, and it says, Michael Usry Jr., we just wanted to let you know that your DNA did not match our crime scene DNA, something you already knew.
In an email from police, Michael Usry was officially cleared of the murder of Angie Dodge, but he was still thoroughly traumatized.
You were angry at Ancestry?
I was angry at everybody. The police, scientists, these database companies. How could they misfire so bad?
48 Hours asked Ancestry.com about Usry's experience. In a statement, they said they will not share any information with law enforcement unless compelled to by a court order or search warrant. Usry's case, they say, was unique and the only time they have received a formal legal request for DNA-related information. After what happened to Usry, Ancestry.com told us they took action. The public database used by authorities was made private and can no longer be accessed by the public or police.
Can't control fate and what happens to you, so I just figured that there was a reason for this happening.
Michael Usry decided he wanted to try and prevent it from happening to anyone else by making a documentary about his experience. He was shocked when Angie Dodge's mother was willing to talk. What he didn't realize is that Carol Dodge had an agenda of her own.
She's fairly certain that a killer is in my bloodline.
I remember Mike and I sitting down, and I said, okay, Mike, here's a piece of paper. Now I want you to write down from your great-grandfather to your grandfather to your dad. And he did me a genealogy sheet.
My grandfather, he had 6 other brothers. Carol just wonders, hey, maybe it's somebody you don't even know. Maybe it's an illegitimate son of one of your pappy's brothers.
Despite all that, Carol Dodge and Michael Usry have forged a rather odd, close bond.
You're a really special person.
You are too, Carol.
And after hearing Carol and Angie's story, the focus of Usry's documentary changed dramatically to Carol Dodge's search for her daughter's killer. He immersed himself in the case, starting with the man who had confessed, Chris Tapp.
How many times did you stab her before you let go?
That first time.
Usry quickly learned that Chris Tapp was now claiming his confession was forced. And the Idaho Innocence Project, headed by that DNA expert Greg Hampikian, was now working to set Tapp free.
Based on the DNA, is there any way that Chris could have been in that room?
No, not based on the DNA.
The more Carol Dodge learned about DNA, the more she questioned Chris's confession that he held Angie down while she was being stabbed.
It wasn't until I started studying science that I said it's impossible. How could Chris admit in doing what he said he did and there be no physical evidence?
But it wasn't just the science that bothered Carol Dodge. She believed Chris Tapp's confession was coerced by the detectives who interrogated him.
Come on, man. I mean, you're the heat of the moment. She's putting up the fight. Do you know? You're caught. You're right there in the middle.
I watch it.
Right?
And it's so frustrating.
This was Chris Tapp when we first met. At 40 years old, he'd been inmate number 56265 for 20 years.
You look at that 20-year-old kid, you know, and you realize, God, I was just an idiot.
Think hard about it. I know it's there. You know.
Chris Tapp says his confession was a lie, a story fed to him by police and then forced back out of him on tape.
You can see him specifically pointing out facts to me or giving little innuendos.
This would be the stairs going up. Okay. So you went up these stairs. Okay.
Or hints of how the murder went down.
Well, it's a porch that goes outside.
It all started because Chris Tapp's friend, a man named Ben, who also knew Angie, was arrested in Ely, Nevada for assaulting a woman at knife point. To investigators, the crime seemed similar to the attack on Angie. So while Ben was in custody in Nevada, investigators brought Chris in for questioning.
Emphatically, I said I had nothing to do with it. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm going there. I knew there's no way.
But instead of leaving it at that, Tapp, then just 20 years old, cooperated.
I felt like, trust them, they're not going to do anything wrong.
He doesn't know they can lie to him. And most innocent people have no idea that the interrogators can lie to you.
First, Tapp was told there was irrefutable evidence that his friend Ben killed Angie and that Tapp was there when it happened.
I'm pretty sure we know what happened and who did what, how, when, where, and why.
Tapp kept denying all knowledge of the crime.
Did you hear her scream or anything like that?
I wasn't there.
But detectives persisted, and even though he had a lawyer, Tapp kept talking.
And so when they offered you a polygraph, seemed like a good idea?
Yeah, seemed like a great idea. I had nothing to hide, no reason not to do it.
But Tapp was told he was being deceptive, and detectives promised him full immunity, no jail time, in exchange for the truth, as long as he hadn't participated in the actual murder. That's when Tapp says he started telling police what he thought they wanted to hear.
No, are you sure Ben's there?
Yes.
You're
Positive?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Tapp told detectives he was there when Ben killed Angie Dodge.
You told him no, don't do it. Yeah. Okay, so did he have the knife then? Pardon?
But just hours later, detectives learned that Ben did not match the killer's DNA. A desperate Chris Tapp started changing his story, blaming several other friends for the murder.
I continued to lie. I continued to give them story after story, and they should have just stopped. But they didn't.
But Chris, why didn't you stop?
I didn't think I could.
When none of the men he named matched the DNA, Tapp says police still refused to let up. After 23 days and 7 interrogations, Chris Tapp confessed to participating in Angie's murder, and authorities voided his immunity agreement.
You hold her down, okay, while she's being cut. You hold her down while she's being cut.
That's what was the end of it all. That's what brought me to prison.
Authorities have repeatedly dismissed Tapp's claims of a forced confession until an astonishing discovery would change the game. Never before seen videotapes of 7 polygraph exams administered to Chris Tapp. Tapes that convinced even Carol Dodge that Chris Tapp is innocent.
Chris Tapp basically just got railroaded.
Carol Dodge took on a new mission to free the man convicted of her daughter's murder and find the killer who left his DNA, even if it turned out to be a member of Michael Usry's family.
You always gotta have a little faith, gotta have a little hope. I haven't accepted this as my end.
I can't imagine spending one day in prison, let alone 20+ years.
Mike Heavey is a retired Superior Court judge who believes so strongly that Chris Tapp is innocent, he spent the last 4 years trying to prove it.
When you look at the interrogation videos, he knows nothing.
So, Chris Tapp, Ben.
He struggles
Let it out.
for details.
Let it out. You're there.
Why? Because he wasn't there.
Heavey runs a wrongful conviction project called Judges for Justice and took on Tapp's case after watching the interrogation tapes.
I wasn't there. I wasn't even down the stairs. I wasn't nowhere around.
Judge Heavey became convinced that Chris Tapp had been coerced into changing his story an astounding 6 times and knew that something was missing.
I was concerned. He went from one day saying,
I wasn't there.
And the next day,
You're standing above her like this, like her head's right here. Yeah.
I'm at the crime scene and I stabbed her. I couldn't see how he made that jump. So I went back to look at the polygraph and my jaw just dropped.
Does it help to say that I'm nervous?
In between Chris's 9 interrogations, detectives administered 7 polygraph exams. All of them were recorded, but no one had ever bothered to look at the tapes because polygraphs are inadmissible in court, and the sound is barely audible.
Polygraphs are typically used to assess the credibility of the witness when they're done honestly.
And how was the polygraph used in this case?
This case was used to trick Chris Tapp into giving false testimony. Our polygraph expert says it was used like a psychological rubber hose to get him to implicate himself in the murder of Angie Dodge.
Judge Heavey says that detectives in the case broke the rules in the polygraph room and thought no one would ever notice.
The United States Supreme Court has held that it's improper to threaten. You can't threaten because it leads to false confessions. They threaten him with the gas chamber, being accessory to murder, and being a conspirator to murder.
You're an accessory conspirator. That's being charged just like the person. They get life in the gas chamber.
They figured no one's going to look at the polygraphs, so it'll be hidden. No one will ever see it.
Heavey says Chris Tapp was brainwashed.
I'm scared. You're scared. The reason why is because you subconsciously remember.
Chris Tapp eventually comes to believe that the polygraph is an all-knowing scientific instrument that can read his subconscious and is telling the machine that he was at the crime.
Teacher, I wouldn't say this, but I believe you were cold-blooded killer. You got trapped.
Chris finally says, yes, I stabbed her because Ben threatened me. And then Chris said,
did I do it?
The police officer walks over and says, give me your hand, like he passed the polygraph. And that gets Chris Tapp 30 years to life, charged with the death penalty. Ugly stuff.
Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, scared. I'm scared. That's pretty much the day my life ended.
But Tapp never told anyone about what happened during those polygraph exams.
I didn't know what they did in the polygraph tapes was wrong. I didn't know. If I would have known these things 20 years, 15, 10 years ago, then maybe we wouldn't be here today.
Idaho Falls police deny any wrongdoing
I don't remember seeing them.
in their interrogations or polygraph exams.
Do you think the polygraph was used as a coercive tool?
Well, I don't know that was the intent. I think the intent is to find out the truth.
Over the years, the courts have upheld Tapp's confession as valid and admissible and not the product of coercive police conduct.
I don't think they were trying to cause harm. It wasn't any malicious intent, I don't think.
It's hard for me to wrap my head around what the police are thinking.
John Thomas is Chris Tapp's appellate attorney.
It's okay. You made a mistake. Just say, hey, I made a mistake. We got the wrong guy. Let's all rally around and let's get the right guy.
Mike Heavey was hoping that the newly discovered polygraph tapes would be enough for a judge to grant Chris Tapp a new trial.
Those polygraph videos are now new evidence. They're the wedge to get Chris in front of a judge to see the coercion that went on.
I hope he walks out a free man.
It's not often you hear the mother of a victim say that about the only man serving time for her daughter's murder.
True.
It was March 2017, and Chris Tapp was just 2 weeks away from 2 hearings that his lawyer, John Thomas, hoped would set him free.
We have too much evidence showing that Chris Tapp wasn't there.
Have you ever found DNA that matched Chris Tapp at the scene?
No.
But Police Chief Mark McBride maintained that given Tapp's confession, the absence of his DNA at the crime scene proved nothing. Then, in a stunning turn of events, the district attorney's office wanted to make a deal. Tapp's murder conviction would stand, but the rape conviction would go away, and there would be no probation.
Chris Tapp would just take his lumps on his 20 years and walk a free man.
Victory!
Tapp took the deal. That was in 2017. 2 years later.
I've got a full-time job, I'm married. I've actually become that productive member of society that I truly thought I could become.
Meanwhile, Carol Dodge never stopped hunting for Angie's killer.
I've done a lot of research on technology, and I was bound determined I was going to solve my daughter's case.
Not long after Chris's release, Carol got some help. New Police Chief Bryce Johnson says he already had his sights set on Angie's case.
I talked to all the detectives, and I kind of told them, let's not worry about what's been done over the past 23 years. We have one mission. It's to find out who left this DNA sample.
It wasn't easy, but 2 years later, there was news.
Today we are here to share developments in the homicide investigation of Angie Dodge.
On May 16, 2019,
Thank you, and thank you for being here.
Chief Johnson told the world they had finally found and arrested the man who matched the DNA.
Carol inspired us all to try harder and to do better. The thing about Carol is she knew more about DNA than I knew about DNA.
What Carol knew is that this woman,
good afternoon,
CC Moore, and a company called Paramount Nanolabs had been making huge strides in solving cold cases using genealogy and public databases.
This is our 56th case this year at Paramount using genetic genealogy to identify unknown suspects and victims.
Moore and Paramount were able to generate an even more complete DNA profile of Angie's killer than ever before. That profile could now be uploaded to a large public DNA database called GEDmatch, a free website that allows people to upload their own DNA profiles in search of relatives. In return, if users opt in, their data can be accessed by law enforcement.
When we upload that data, we get a list of people that share significant amounts of DNA with the unknown suspect.
Moore found a family tree that she was confident contained a killer, and it was Michael Usry's family tree.
He apparently was a split off of the Usry family from something like over 100 years ago.
So we're talking about right family tree, but the branch is way off on the other side.
Way off, yeah.
Did you know anything about this sort of offshoot of your family?
No, totally not.
Now Detective Sage Albright and Captain Bill Squires were laser focused on the men in this way off branch of Usry's family tree.
It had been whittled down to a list of persons that I think was around 10 or 11 people that we were able to reduce down further just because they weren't in Idaho at the time, or they were 3 years old at the time.
Left with 6 possible suspects, detectives had to secretly collect their DNA, following them around for days, waiting for discarded cigarette butts, soda cans, or plastic straws. One guy was a tobacco chewer.
The detectives came out, kind of scooped that up. We sent it off to the lab, came back negative. It wasn't the person we're looking for.
Then they started running out of men, and a fear set in.
The thing we were concerned about, is there a child out there that nobody knows about, right? Did someone have a baby and it's not in the genealogy record?
They were right, and this obituary miraculously led CC Moore to a missing Usry. This woman, Helen Darnell, had a daughter who was once married to an Usry. After their divorce, a son was born under a different last name, Brian Drips.
When we looked at that name, we realized we had talked to him in the first days of the investigation. He lived across the street from Angie.
I literally said, "You got to be kidding." Brian Drips, he was right across the street. That it took me 23 years when they had it in the first 25 pages of the investigation.
The police report indicates that the day of Angie's murder, a young police officer who was canvassing the neighborhood had briefly questioned a then 31-year-old Brian Drips.
Everyone in that neighborhood got a knock on the door.
Drips denied any knowledge of the crime, and police never asked for his DNA. About 7 weeks after the murder, Drips left Idaho Falls. He was living in Idaho, about 300 miles away, when a cigarette butt linked his DNA to the crime, and detectives picked him up for questioning.
It was obvious he was nervous. He put on a pretty good game face, but his hands started to shake.
For several hours, Drips denied any involvement in Angie's death.
And then when we told him, "Oh, we have your DNA at the crime scene," there was a noticeable change in his demeanor, and eventually he told us that he had been involved.
Detective Albright says Trips also reported that he acted alone. That meant Chris Tapp could not have been there. 2 months after Drips was arrested, Tapp was back in court.
There's clear convincing evidence the defendant was convicted of a crime for which he did not commit.
This time to be fully exonerated. This case is the world's first exoneration by way of genealogical DNA testing.
I'm extremely happy for him. I hope that he can piece together his life again.
But Usry says he still has doubts about the use of genealogy.
Kind of a scary thing to me to think about what this world is going to be like if all of our genetic codes are in a computer database. Once it's in a computer, that's almost like more permanent than carving something in stone nowadays. But I think that we really, really need to be cautious and take a step back and look at this technology.
Carol Dodge disagrees.
Without technology, without genealogy research, we would have never found Angie's killer. It is the key that opens the door to justice.
Little small town Niles has this brutal, savage murder. There are kids that grew up locking their doors and being scared when they went to bed at night just because of this case.
Roxanne Wood in 1987 was married to Terry Wood. Roxanne and Terry went to the bowling alley and arrived in separate cars. Roxanne left earlier than Terry. He just wanted to keep with the fun he was having, and Roxanne wanted to get home and go to bed. Terry arrives home and notices Roxanne laying in the kitchen. He notices a pool of blood on the floor. She was bleeding profusely from her neck.
City Police, oh my God, my wife has been murdered. My wife has been murdered.
I answered the phone, and I could tell something was bad wrong. He just broke down. He just said, "Someone murdered your sister." Rock being the rock of the family, she didn't have an enemy out there. Who just randomly breaks in and does this to someone?
She was sexually assaulted. The assailant left his DNA.
But in terms of the essential evidence, based on what was there, this went cold fairly quickly, did it not?
Based off of what they had to go on, yeah, the DNA technology wasn't there to really follow up and go through on, and there was absolutely not a lot more to go off.
How frustrating was it that no one had been arrested?
Oh, beyond frustrating.
I was starting to lose hope. Dr. Ashlyn Kirsten and I had been talking about involving the students at Western in a cold case project.
When we first got the file, it was just an amazing amount of data. It just looked overwhelming.
Some of the documents are older than I am. Then we would have to sort through if it was relevant information or not. Hours upon hours to scan all this stuff.
They were able to organize that report where we were able to put a keyword in and search across that entire document, 3,500 pages.
How important was that?
Hugely important.
I was hopeful that we would be able to solve the case or move the case forward, or that someone who came after us would.
The first thing that I did was I requested access to the case file. It was very easy to read through quite quickly due to the work of the students.
Gabriela Vargas is a genetic genealogist, probably one of the best in the country, if not the world.
But I'm also a pink-haired, tattooed mom from California who enjoys woodworking and gardening.
Describe the size of the DNA material that you had to work with.
It was 28 picograms, so small that you could never see it with the naked eye.
Just a speck of a speck of a speck.
Very,
Like the
very,
size of a
very
human cell.
small amount of DNA. It was deemed unsolvable prior to my involvement. Roxanne Wood's family was my motivation for working as hard and as fast as I did. They never gave up hope that one day justice would be served. They have a Facebook page. Janet Wood had made a post on the page, "One day, Rock, one day." And I screamed out at the top of my lungs, "No, today's your day, Rock, today's your day."
Brad Woods remembers February 20th, 1987, like it was yesterday. He was just 14 years old.
I was getting ready for school, and I can remember my mom pounding on the bathroom door saying to hurry up. She needed to talk to me.
Hours earlier, Brad's 30-year-old sister Roxanne, known as Rock, had been nearby in her Niles, Michigan home alone when she was viciously attacked, her throat slashed.
When I came out, she had told me that she had gotten a call that Rock had been killed.
Devastated, Roxanne's family couldn't imagine why anyone would want to harm her.
She always made people think you were her best friend. She just loved everyone. High school graduation, gorgeous hair.
She definitely had the hair.
She was tall, statuesque. She dressed to the nines. That was very important to her. She was very classy.
Janet Wood could not help but admire her older sister. Their parents were divorced, and Roxanne had taken on a maternal role with her siblings.
With divorced parents, a lot of times you feel like you're being shuffled between, house to house. And the one thing that was always stable for me was Rock.
She was being mom to you.
Yeah. Rock, she was always there.
She was your rock.
She was.
Roxanne's last name would eventually change from Woods to Wood.
In walks Terry and Rock.
After meeting future husband Terry Wood. shortly after she graduated from high school.
She was working at his father's company. Terry was still in high school on the wrestling team. And in he walks, and he's in his wrestling shorts and whatever. She said that was the nicest looking legs she ever saw. And she was just smitten by him right away.
Roxanne and Terry married in 1982.
She said it was the happiest day of her life.
6 years later, Janet would change her name from Woods to Wood as well when she married Terry's brother Rob. Both brothers wound up working for the family business. For Roxanne and Terry, it proved to be a bit too much togetherness.
They got dressed in the morning together, and they rode to work together, and they came home for lunch together, and then they went back to work together.
Roxanne's solution? Taking a job in nearby South Bend, Indiana. A little time apart seemed to help the marriage.
Very, very content, happy, looking forward to starting a family.
February 19th, 1987 started out as a typical Thursday evening for the couple. They met for dinner at a restaurant in downtown Niles after work, and then went to a local bowling alley, arriving in separate cars.
From the report, you could tell when Roxanne entered that bowling alley, all eyes were on her.
Michigan State Police Detective Sergeant John Moore.
There wasn't a whole lot of ladies there because this was the men's bowling league, so she drew some attention.
As midnight approached, Roxanne was ready to call it a night, but Terry wanted to stay.
There's witnesses where Terry and she said goodnight to each other. Hug, kissed, love you, drive safe.
After Roxanne headed home, Terry stayed behind and bowled another game. He then headed home and arrived here about 45 minutes after his wife. Terry entered the house through the garage, and once inside, he came upon a horrific sight.
She was laying on the floor. She had her nightgown on. He said there was a lot of blood.
According to Detective First Lieutenant Chuck Christensen, Terry said he rushed over to Roxanne.
He got behind her, according to him, and picked her head up and held her head in his
see if she
hands
was
for-
alive?
To see if she was alive, yes.
Finding no signs of life, Terry grabbed the phone and called the local police station.
She is dead. She has been cut.
Terry noticed that her panties were down around her knee/ankle area. Her nightgown was pulled up.
Now listen to me, okay?
At times, Terry seemed to get belligerent with the person trying to help him.
I'm gonna get some information from you. I'm gonna get a car started, okay? The car started. No! They are started. No!
The dispatcher kept Terry on the phone.
Don't scream into the phone because the phone distorts and I can't understand you that well, okay? Recording. No, I'm trying to get some information from you, okay? Yeah, right.
Terry's aggressive demeanor on the phone quickly became a red flag, according to investigators.
Is that suspicious behavior to you?
It's a bit suspicious. Typically, they're in shock, distraught, but not normally do you hear that anger component in there to the level that it is in this one.
Detective Sergeant Jason Bailey says a seed of suspicion grew even more once police arrived at the home.
He definitely had fits of rage. I know at one point he was screaming they wanted a supervisor, a sergeant there.
Is he making himself a suspect by this kind of behavior?
Everybody reacts differently, but based on this abnormal reaction, I believe he was making himself a suspect.
First responders eventually had no choice but to subdue Terry by placing him in the back of a patrol car. And when they drove him down to the police post for routine questioning, Terry quickly asked for an attorney, which set off more alarm bells for investigators.
The detective at that time told him within 5 to 10 minutes, "You did this, and I will not rest until I put you away forever."
An investigator said that to Terry.
Terry.
I believe
I
you're the killer.
believe you're the killer, and I will not rest until you're behind bars.
As investigators began piecing together clues in Roxanne Wood's rape and murder, the emerging picture offered up just one suspect, her husband Terry.
There was no sign of any forced entry.
Did that raise eyebrows?
Absolutely.
But Terry told police they'd been having problems with the lock on the back door, claiming it didn't work. Investigators, however, remain suspicious.
We have a sheath up here of a fillet knife located near the body.
That fillet knife, presumed to be the murder weapon, had been taken from a kitchen drawer. It was never found.
That would be odd that a killer would come to a house without a weapon.
Terry told police that he'd slipped in Roxanne's blood as he lifted her head to check on her. But there were no blood smears indicating he'd actually done that. Investigators thought they discovered a potential motive when they looked into Roxanne and Terry's past.
We did uncover a extramarital affair by both parties.
By both parties?
Yeah.
And so when you have a murder like this and you learn there was some infidelity, are you wondering, could jealousy have been a motive?
Absolutely.
I remember the detective saying it was rage. Only someone close to her would have this kind of rage. I never bought that.
Janet firmly believed in Terry's innocence.
I just knew him too well, so that just didn't fit with what I knew. Terry wasn't a rageful guy. He may have a sharp tongue occasionally, but never a violent person.
Despite strongly suspecting Terry, investigators didn't believe there was enough evidence to charge him. After just a few months, the case went cold, leaving a cloud of suspicion hanging over Terry. He declined our request for an interview.
I'd heard stories that at times he'd walk into a place and somebody would call him Slash.
DNA was left at the crime scene. A sample was preserved, but given the limitations on technology back in 1987, not much could be done with it. Still, Roxanne's family never gave up.
I didn't lose hope, ever. I mean, this guy just didn't do this and then lead a clean, pristine life the rest of his life.
DNA technology evolved, eventually allowing the sample to be uploaded to the criminal database CODIS in 1999. But no match was returned. As disappointing as that was, everyone was hopeful that the DNA would at least clear Terry when it was tested against his. The result, it wasn't Terry's DNA.
So did that eliminate Terry as a person of interest, as a suspect in this case?
No.
Why not? It's not his semen.
Just because you find semen in somebody doesn't necessarily mean that that person is the one that killed them.
After that, the case offered no new leads until 2020.
After more than 3 decades of compiling thousands of reports, police were drowning in paperwork. That's when a professor and an innovative group of students here at Western Michigan University figured out a way to speed up the investigation.
The real-world experience, I think, is priceless. See that Marine?
Dr. Ashlyn Kirsten teaches a criminal justice studies program. For years, she's been talking to Detective Christensen about how her students might help on a cold case.
What a great partnership that would be if we could ever make something like that happen.
So the professor and the detective came up with a plan. Dr. Kirsten's students would process around 3,500 pages of documents, accumulated since the day Roxanne was murdered, into a single digitized database. Samantha Rogers was one of several students who worked on the case.
The officers are able to search by name and see if they've already been interviewed, if they needed a follow-up. They can search locations, things that they wouldn't be able to do just flipping through thousands of pages.
Mackenzie Stoneman says the decades-old files were a solemn reminder of how long some victims wait for justice.
It gave a sense of gravity to what we were doing, that these cases have gone unsolved for that long.
Around the same time the students began crunching data, Christensen decided it was time for a Hail Mary pass. Colleen Fitzpatrick is the president and founder of Identifinders International, a company that specializes in genetic genealogy.
It's been used in forensic cases to help identify unidentified remains and violent offenders for violent crimes.
Christensen hired her genealogy company to examine the tiny amount of DNA left from Roxanne's case.
We found out there was what I would call a gnat's eyebrow of DNA left, about 3% of what we normally use. That was the lowest amount of DNA we've ever had to work with to solve a case.
Identifinders spent about 10 months working with the data the sample produced, but came up empty.
It really did feel impossible. It really did.
Then one day in April 2021, Colleen happened to be chatting with investigative genetic genealogist Gabriela Vargas, who worked as a consultant for Identifinders.
And I said, well, why don't you let me look at it? I concluded that I did not stand with the others. I believed that this case was extremely solvable, and I believed that I could solve it.
So Gabriela got to work. Incredibly, she was able to generate a genetic profile from the killer's trace DNA.
It tells me where their ancestral origins come from. Are they Eastern European? Are they Mediterranean? Are they African American?
And what was the race of this person?
Caucasian.
Gabriela then turned to an online DNA service. When consumers use DNA sites like 23andMe and Ancestry.com, they can take their results and upload them to a broader database called GEDmatch in the hope of finding more relatives.
They can choose to opt into law enforcement matching. If they do that, I can see if they are a match to my suspect.
Gabriela was able to use GEDmatch and the genetic profile she developed to start to build the family tree of Roxanne's killer.
How far back did you go in time?
One side of the tree, the ancestor was 1823. On the other side, the top ancestor was 1797. Essentially, what we're looking for amongst these matches are where they connect to each other, and it led me to a union couple.
A union couple is where two sides of the family tree meet.
This couple was born around 1920. Based on that, we can presume that they would have kids around 1940, maybe 1950. It would have to be one of their children.
The couple she found had 3 sons. She let the detectives know. They did background checks and eliminated 2 of the 3 brothers as possibilities. They were down to the last brother.
He's been involved in a lot of different things.
Violent things?
Violent things, sexual deviant things, you name it, he's probably been involved in it.
And you connect the DNA with someone who has a history of violent behavior, and you got yourself a suspect.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about sharing your DNA search results with law enforcement? Join the conversation now on social media.
After 34 years and one last chance at solving this case, with a speck of DNA too small to see with the human eye, Detective Chuck Christensen's daring bet paid off big.
And to know that we had come to this point was simply amazing.
Michigan State Police now believed they had finally tracked down Roxanne Wood's killer.
We were confident now we were going to solve this and make an arrest.
You could now pinpoint who that individual was that had committed these awful crimes. And who is that person?
That individual's Patrick Gillum.
Patrick Gillum, a man who was living just a few miles from where he allegedly raped and murdered Roxanne Wood. And it turns out he had a troubled past.
Had been a drinker.
Is he into drugs?
He's into drugs, just an individual that was lost in life and a bad individual based on his background.
When detectives dug into Gillam's criminal history, they found a connection to another disturbing case 8 years before Roxanne's attack.
My wife, Maureen, was attacked by Patrick Gillam in 1979.
Robert and Maureen Farrig and their 2 young daughters lived in Gary, Indiana, back in September of 1979.
We were just kind of blossoming into adulthood with the kids, with our lifestyle, with our jobs.
Robert was economic director for the city, and Maureen was an art teacher at the local middle school.
What is it about Maureen that you fell in love with?
Wow. I can't say one thing only. She was very attractive, which has caught my eye. She was so nice. People gravitated to her because of her warm personality.
One night, while making his way home from a business trip, Robert called Maureen with a favor.
I said, Maureen, I don't have my keys to the house, so could you leave the side door open?
At around 11 at night, Robert turned onto his street. He'll never forget what he saw.
When I pull up, I see the police cars.
Robert quickly found Maureen, who calmly told him she was in bed when she was startled awake by a noise downstairs.
Maureen sees this guy going through her purse. He got scared, whatever, and chased her. Maureen started going upstairs, and he grabbed her at the bottom of the stairs and got on top of her. And he tried his best to molest her. He wasn't successful.
Maureen told Robert the man then took her purse and fled. Throughout the attack, Maureen had stayed quiet. She didn't want to awaken her 2 girls.
That takes an incredible amount of courage. She was willing to sacrifice herself there, if need be, to protect her 1- and 3-year-old daughters.
Maureen had a lot more than courage. She had strength.
About a week later, Gillam was pulled over in Gary for a traffic violation. A police officer noticed credit cards on the seat next to him. They were Maureen's.
Police officer called me and said, we picked the guy up. We're bringing him into the station.
When he was interviewed by police, he said, all I remember is going into the house and I blacked out and woke up with my pants around my ankles.
Patrick Gillam was charged with burglary and unlawful deviant conduct. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 14 years in Indiana State Prison.
How did you go on with life from that point?
We forgot about it. We changed our house. We changed our neighborhood. She never told anybody because she felt that was a private issue.
Patrick Gillam served just 7 years of his 14-year sentence. About 4 months after his release, police believe Gillam assaulted Roxanne Wood.
Criminals learn as they go, and I believe he learned from that first crime he did that I better not leave this witness alive because I will be in prison for a long, long time.
Maureen died in 2018 from cancer, not knowing anything about the Roxanne Wood case. Now, armed with their DNA evidence, investigators were ready to move in on Patrick Gillam.
At this point, we decide to get a surreptitious sample to compare to the profile that we had from Roxanne Wood from the scene. And we do this through our undercover surveillance team.
I'm Ryan Cotty, and I am a trooper with the Michigan State Police.
And you do some undercover work from time to time?
I do. I'm assigned with the Fugitive Recovery Team for the 5th District.
In May 2021, Cotty and his team surveilled Gillam in South Bend for days on end and picked up a crucial clue that would aid them in collecting his DNA.
We noticed that he was a smoker.
And why does that help you?
Just in the simple fact that, when you're smoking, it's a great source of DNA. You have your lips directly on the butt of the cigarette, and your saliva gets in the cigarette.
Hot on Gillum's tail, the team witnessed their target flick a cigarette butt outside his truck window while driving.
And so, oh boy, you're rubbing your hands, you're going, this is going to be that final piece of the puzzle that you had talked about,
Yes.
right?
Yes. But there's a twist. We sent that up to the lab right away. A couple days later, the lab director calls me and he said, it's not a match. DNA is DNA. If it's not a match, it's not a match.
Detective Moore says investigators were shocked when the lab called to say the DNA sample from Patrick Gillum's cigarette butt did not match Roxanne's killer.
We're scratching our heads. I called the trooper that grabbed that cigarette butt, and I said, is there any way at all that you lost sight of that when it flipped out of his finger? And he said, a car drove by right then.
It was possible the cigarette butt tested was not Gillum's.
The only thing logically that we can do is go back and get another one.
So undercover trooper Ryan Cotty headed back to work, once again tailing Gillum.
He pulled into this laundromat, which we saw as a window of opportunity, that he would most likely be coming out to take a smoke break.
This time, Cotty was determined not to lose sight of Gillum's discarded cigarette butt for even a moment. And instead of tailing him in a car, Cotty followed Gillum on foot.
I'm not a smoker, and there was a gas station right over on the corner that I saw, and I was like, well, you know, I need to go over and get a pack of cigarettes and sit on the curb next to the laundromat. He came and took a seat probably about 6 to 8 feet away from me, and we had a smoke together.
So how did you strike up a conversation with him?
I just tried to say hi to him, made some small conversation. He liked the Red Wings.
It wasn't long before Gillum finished his cigarette and went back inside.
I saw him throw his cigarette, which was right in about this area. So it was a great situation because the cigarette was by itself. So I pull out a glove and go over, and I picked the cigarette up with my hand.
Was it still smoking?
Oh, it was still warm. Yes, it was. So I wrapped it up inside that glove. I stuck it in my pocket and headed out.
Investigators held their breath until the results from Gillum's cigarette butt came back. It was a perfect match to the DNA left at the 1987 crime scene.
I was ecstatic. I was very, very happy.
But investigators were not yet ready to make an arrest, opting to bring Gillum in for an interview in July 2021.
You're not in trouble. You're here voluntarily.
Detective Bailey says they told Gillum they needed to question him about an old case.
Do you know anybody by the name of Roxanne? He explains to us, I know 2 Roxannes, and he said one's a stripper, one's a drug addict.
Gillum was shown a picture of Roxanne Wood.
That girl look familiar? You ever met her before?
Never met her.
Maybe that's a newer picture. Here's an older picture.
Then Gillum was shown a second photo of Roxanne.
Never seen her, never met her, don't know who she is. And I said, well, we're here to talk to you about her. This woman's been assaulted.
This is too much for me, man.
You can see his body just tense up and almost to the point of hyperventilation. Hands started shaking, threw his hands, back in the air. I've never had a reaction out of somebody like that in 23 years of doing this.
Does he continue talking?
I gotta talk to my lawyer.
At that time, he requested to speak to his attorney.
I gotta talk to my lawyer, man.
In February 2022, just days shy of the 35th anniversary of Roxanne's murder, Patrick Gillum was arrested at his South Bend, Indiana home.
An answer a family has waited 35 years for.
Roxanne's brother, Brad Woods.
It didn't seem real. It was nothing like I had ever played in my mind of how I would be when they came to the door to say, we've got him.
Detective Christensen then met face-to-face with the man who had lived for decades with cruel rumors and doubt, Terry Wood.
I sat him down, explained he was no longer a person of interest, and we knew he had nothing to do with it.
How did he react?
He was very emotional. He started crying, of course, was bewildered and in shock.
As a 35-year-old burden was lifted off Terry, the hammer was about to fall for Gillum.
You're under arrest, okay?
Investigators questioned him for 5.5 hours at a police station in South Bend, with Gillum only asking for an attorney at the very end. At times, he spoke in circles.
I can't believe I did it if I did it. Well, you're saying I did, so.
When pressed on it, he kept saying, you guys are telling me I did this, and if I did this, I'm a monster.
I'm a monster, man. If I did that, that's a monster. That's a monster, man.
Only a monster would do this.
Let me ask you this. How do you think your DNA was found with her?
I have no clue.
How do you think?
I have no clue, man.
Said that several times during the interview. When he was confronted with the case facts, he kept saying, I don't remember.
I don't remember, man.
I don't remember doing that.
But Janet says Gillum's reaction when he was questioned 7 months prior proved he was lying now.
He visibly reacted, shook like a leaf, leaned back in his chair, pounding his chest.
I gotta talk to my lawyer.
I think I need a lawyer. You tell me he doesn't remember what he did.
Gillum was charged with Roxanne's murder, but had a golden opportunity to apprehend him. Decades earlier, slipped through investigators' fingers.
I truly believe that I would have been raped and murdered.
See more of the evidence and timeline at 48hours.com.
In the summer of 1987, just months after Roxanne Wood was murdered in her home, her alleged killer crossed paths with yet another woman. It was a hot night in South Bend, Indiana, when Rose Caparel went outside to her front lawn.
I was standing down there watering, and all of a sudden I hear this loud car coming down the street.
Rose, standing alone, says she noticed a blue El Camino, similar to this one, driven by a stranger, getting closer.
I looked, and he had a taillight out on the car. About 3-4 minutes later, I hear the same car coming back down this street.
Now, it had a bad muffler, right?
Oh, the muffler was loud. I just got a feeling that something just wasn't right. And by the time I got halfway to my front door, a man came around the corner of the house. He had a stocking cap on, and he had a full beard. All you could basically see was his eyes. I just turned and ran, screaming down the street.
Have you ever run faster in your life than that moment?
And I'm not a runner, and I ran.
Rose says she ran to a neighbor's house and called local police, but the assailant had escaped.
What do you believe would have happened if that man had caught up to you?
My thought was he was going to rape me.
A few days later, while Rose and her family were driving to dinner, her daughter Tina says she spotted that same blue El Camino with a burned-out taillight in a parking lot.
My mom says right away, that's the car.
Stunned, Rose and Tina say they went to call the police, leaving Rose's husband Stan, a retired Marine, waiting for the car's owner.
I came back to my dad holding a gun at the attacker, sitting on the ground.
Tina says her father demanded the man hand over his driver's license. They say the name on that license, Patrick Gillum.
We had never heard the name before.
Rose says the police never arrived, so Stan lowered his gun and let Gillum leave. She says she later reported the incident at the South Bend police station.
We didn't pursue it because we figured, they would be doing something with it.
No arrest was ever made. Decades later, when Rose saw the report of Gillum being arrested for Roxanne Wood's murder, she and Tina decided to tell their story to the Michigan police.
Imagine if the police had come, they might have solved Roxanne Wood's case just a few months after it had occurred.
Possible, yes.
An opportunity lost.
Yeah, it could have went that way.
But in April 2022, Gillum's day of reckoning finally came.
When he walked in, I openly said, "Piece of." I didn't realize I was saying it as loudly as I did.
In a Michigan courtroom, he faced some of the people whose lives he had viciously altered.
And he made eye contact with me. He sat down and he looked up and he stared right in my face.
I don't remember that.
Even though Gillum had insisted to investigators that he didn't remember murdering Roxanne, he later pleaded no contest to second-degree murder. And now everyone waited for his sentence to be handed down.
It was almost like being face to face with the devil. I remember being shaky and nervous and I just couldn't believe I'm sitting this close to the person that did this.
Brad and Janet finally got the chance to address the man who killed their sister all those years ago.
Patrick Gillum is a very definition of a nightmare. Women fear our whole lives.
Gillum appeared confused, as though he'd seen a ghost when looking at Janet. He wore headphones in order to hear.
Janet does look a lot like Rock. He was probably in shock seeing her sitting there.
His actions gave all of us a life sentence, while he got to live most of his as a free man. And we are here today to see him finally pay something for what he's done, which is likely the rest of his life in a cage, like the vile animal that he is.
It seems people like him tend to find Jesus in prison. Don't bother looking, because the devil will be the only one greeting you.
When it was his turn to speak, Gillum offered an apology and a prayer.
I can't believe I did what I did. And I pray for them every night. And I am so sorry. I just hope that sometime in the future, with God's help, that they can start to forgive me.
The judge sentenced Gillum, who was 67 at the time, to a minimum of 23 years in prison. Sitting in court, Terry Wood, now vindicated, watched as his wife's real killer was led away. Robert Farrig witnessed Terry's pain firsthand.
I shook his hand. He was, shaking, crying. I felt more empathy for him than I could for any other person I've met.
Terry was cleared, and his wife's killer found, thanks in large part to advances in technology. Genetic genealogist Gabriela Vargas, who solved a decades-long cold case in just 4 days, says she's eager to do it again.
As a result of your work, more and more law enforcement agencies will be coming to you, more and more families hoping that you can do your miracle work and solve their cold cases. That's quite a burden for you, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely not. It's an honor. It's an honor to be able to work these cases, to bring justice to these victims and closure to these families, and I will never stop.
As the Wood family finally found some peace, their rock will always be with them, giving them the strength to move forward. Janet remembers a dream she had about her sister.
We were downtown Niles, and she came up and grabbed me. And she goes, Janet. And I was like, oh, Rock, oh my God. And we're walking and walking and walking and just laughing. And all of a sudden I look up and it's dead silent. And we're at the gates of the cemetery. And I said, do you have to go back? And she goes, yes. She goes, but it's fine. She goes, I'm good. She goes, I'm really good. That was it.
Her home became a crime scene.
I knew my mom was in distress.
Her mother's fiance dead.
It was shock.
What really happened?
I didn't even know what to think.
What Angelina saw. 48 Hours, Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.